Well, hello there, fellow hobbyists, and welcome back at Double Railways at the 5-part series. And this is part 3 of the 5-part series today. And we're going to catch up where we left off in part 2. So, in part 2, we confirmed that I was going to use a viaduct, and yes, there were many shapes and sizes and different suppliers, and so many options to choose from. But I decided to stick with Hornby on this one, and the viaduct that I chose worked out pretty well, I think. And yes, and let's have a look at all the photos I was considering, and also trying to get an ideas of how to weather this viaduct. Some of my favorites before even ordering the Hornby Viaduct was the image here that we can see of the King's Mill Viaduct, and then also the next one is the Stockport Viaduct, and some of the others that I was looking at the Ouse Valley Viaduct. So once again, the final product, the final viaduct by Hornby fitted my plan just perfectly, as you can see here. So I did the elevation to make this small layout work and to fit in the viaduct, and very happy about it. And as you know, we started prepping for the bridge water, the viaduct water, and the area and scenics. Alright, so the next step was fixing the tracks. Now, 3 times that I worked on the tracks, and the Peco, when bent, obviously one side will become shorter than the next, and that threw me off a couple of times, and resetting and finally getting to the point where I could glue down the track and also start building up the scenics, as well as a little compartment or a little bit of a hiding spot for the power supply to the track. Here you can see what I've done. It's just a little bit of a exterior wall around it, just to protect it and to kind of like put it out of the way so that you don't see wiring. And obviously that's the angle that I will not generally film when I do filming on this small little layout. And that's one thing about this layout, is that I've created basically 4 different little sections on this layout. That's absolutely amazing to use for so many reasons and so many different scenes that you can set up. It's the possibilities are endless. And that's why I hope that you will enjoy it with me, and I hope that you will appreciate what I've done, and again, all on a budget. So here are some power tools that I used. Well, I had to cut off some track where I needed for it to line up correctly, and that's a very important tool if this is your first time with a little layout and creating a small layout. There is still work to be done, but this can also be seen in a good light because it will prep you for your next big layout or whatever your future plan is. Maybe as another second layout. The point is that you get all the options that you can consider and the problem solving that you need to get and delve into when it comes to laying down tracks. So finally lined up, and the track is now glued down. So also important to take note of, in reference to the barriers by the tracks, and how to ensure that the tracks are safe. You can improvise like I did. I made a kind of like a wall on the side, and you'll see here I had to make some kind of protection wall or cover for the power inlet, and to hide away the wiring and everything, as I'm using the Bachmann standard trainset power supply with the wiring and the little plug and the power supply 2-point that goes into under the track and into the plug there. So also you can, however, also put in small nails on the tracks where there are holes provided in the tracks for that purpose, and maybe just dunk it into strong glue that's polystyrene safe. And the most important thing is to spread the glue as thick enough but also thin enough on top of the cork, and then set your track down bit by bit as you're laying it down, because that will secure it at the end. Alright, so don't forget to clean your tracks as you go along every day when you've finished working around the layout, around the tracks, whether you're painting or gluing other scenics. Just keep on cleaning the track and keep it clean all the way. And having said that, so the next one I did was I started looking at the barriers and looking at the turns and curves, and making sure that if in the event the loco is gonna derail, that everything doesn't come flying off the table. And that was the purpose for what I've done next. But having said that, one important thing to remember is that yes, high speeds are nice on a layout, but again, these locos are not really designed for that high speeds all the time. Well, that's what I believe. And I believe at a slower pace, and you run your layout or your loco in, then that speed, reasonable speed should be acceptable. And if the layout is fine to use at that reasonable speed, then all is fine. But generally, you are not going to go 120 miles per hour around the track. No ways. Not in model or in real life. But anyways, just having said that, so please be wary of that. Try to keep at low speeds and run your loco in on the new track, and just have a look at how the performance is around bends and things like that. And it's all up to you. The risk is in your hands. But yes, I will not take responsibility if you run your loco on a layout like this that I'm suggesting, and the loco comes flying down and you've lost all hope. No, I'd rather give you advice and give you hope. Don't do it. Keep it reasonable speeds until you have got safety barriers up or have complete faith in the whole track and the loco, that the loco can actually handle top speeds around these curves and radius turns. So now coming back to the scenics again, building up the water and obviously building up the water barrier. And what do I mean by that? That's basically like building a little dam. So you're going to have edges and the outline area of the water base or the water space that you are going to use. And those barriers needs to be painted and sealed, because if you're going to use scenics, woodlands, water, fake water, you are going, because it's in liquid form, it's going to run and it will find a hole. I can promise you, it will seep through anything. So you've got to make sure that you close up the area nicely before you start pouring your water scenics bottle out on that layout. So while you're at it and planning your hillside and at the same time sorting out tracks and everything, you can touch base. You can look at other areas that need a little bit of attention. And like what I've done is I wanted to get the paint down and basically cover the edges of the water body so that I can make sure that there will be no leaks once I pour the scenics water on the layout. And whilst painting, you can secure that also by painting over the glue on the edges. And it's a good time to lay down the tissue paper and to start the water shape. And obviously I've chosen a sea mouth, what we call a sea mouth in South Africa. I don't know if they call it the inlet to the bay or something like that, to be more specific. So I've got a bit of ocean and rough waves and then breaking towards the viaduct and then the water flow into the bay area. And speaking of that, We can start painting your blues. You can use light blue as previously indicated, or dark blue, ocean blue. And if you can find fine beach sand, use that. Then it's great to use real beach sand anyways, fine beach sand. Otherwise you can buy woodland scenic sand for those areas of the beach. And speaking of the beach area, now might be a good time to point out that I've got 3 areas of the beach side, the immediate areas, and the 4th area is actually on the edge of the ocean, and that is Faraway Downs Farm. Coming to the beach side, so we got the breaker point where the waves are crazy and where the people will be mostly catching great waves. And then we have boneyards where the VW bus with the long surfboards are parked. And then the inner bay area, which is Hobie's Beach. And this area is where everybody has fun. But this is a very secluded area, and access to this area is through tunnels in 2 ways only. It's kind of like a hidden gem. And while we're on the note, have you actually considered what I've called this layout? Do you want to know? I will definitely share with you. This layout, this small layout, has got a great name. In my opinion, it's once again in reference to my family, and it's called the Castle of Linroot. And again, starting with the scenics and building up the hills or mountain range you want to consider. Remember, I'm doing this on a budget, so I'm using leftover polystyrene and some of these blocks that I had left over that I had to cut and make fit as you go along. And this is the fun part of it, because there's no right or wrong way. You fix and redo, and that's just the hobby. It's constantly changing, and as you're laying stuff down, you can still change it at the last minute, and that's the fun of it. But the great reward at the end of the day is once you've reached the accomplishment and everything's done and you're quite happy yourself with what you've created. That's the most important thing, is just have fun and run your train on your layout that you have built and that you have created. So building up the scenics, you can use leftover cardboard box, leftover polystyrene, or even just polystyrene itself. Just cut the shape out that you'd like to create and the height of the hillside that you'd like to create. But in my case, I've used a bit of all of the above. I've used tissue paper, I've used cardboard box, I've used material, and I've used polystyrene blocks, and the list goes on, and crumbled newspaper. Whatever you can find to make it work. But remember, the material cloth is going to be your top cover for the hillside area, and you need to shape it, and also bear in mind that whatever you've got underneath, if it's crumbled newspaper or whatever, it might give way and it might sag a bit, but it's all up to you. So I just did what I felt at the moment, and there are no rules. The only rule is have fun all the way. So for filling up my mountain range or my hillside, I've used the polystyrene blocks that I'd left over to create elevation, to get height, and then leftovers was leftover paper, A4 paper from my office that I didn't use, or scrap paper that I just wanted to throw away, that I've crumbled up and obviously glued down and started building a shape of what I would like to have the whole effect shown by the material that I cover, so that it can actually take shape of a hill or small mountain range. Alright, so now we've built up our scenics, heights, and our shapes of our hillside, and we can now start laying down the cloth and trying to build a hillside or small mountain range. And that there's again no rules. If you make mistakes, you can use scenics to fill up, and you can even use cardboard box, tear up in small little blocks, and cover those areas. It looks like rocks, you know, mix it with water and glue and press it down. There's so much you can do. And again, I've used the bark, the wooden bark from my trees, from the orchard trees and orchard flowers, and then also the bonsai trees that I've got. And they really look like rock effect, brings a great rock effect to the layout. And once you've laid down the material and you've got your hillside shaped, we can actually start painting on the material, covering it with real soil and anything earthy that you feel that you want to add there. I usually start off with spraying the area with glue, and I mix my glue with a teaspoon of sunlight liquid to basically a liter of glue, and then 2 liters of water added to that. So yeah, you get a lot of glue out of that mix. But anyways, that's the one thing about scenics, you will need a lot of glue to get everything down. But if you've not used so much glue, don't worry and stress now. You can always go back later and add more scenics to cover imperfections. And also at the beginning of the layout, though you have not planned anything for the corners on the edges of the layout board, it will come to mind as you go along. So you can choose anything from a greenery, farm style little scene, and also remember always that you've got a siding on this layout that I suggested as well. So for that one, I'll also put a temporary coal bank, and that will be for when the milk train is on the same route and one of the trains has to pull off and wait for one of the trains to pass. And that will be a nice scene, a nice story also when you do your own films for YouTube, or just having fun in general. But moving over to the viaduct, so if you don't have to do the ocean effect, but river or whatever you'd like to put there, and I've decided on the ocean groove because it's what I like and it reminds me of home in so many ways. And yes, so I will have some beach people, and you can make these things up as you go, and it doesn't have to be permanent fixtures on the scenics. You know, you can just build every scene as you go along. And because I've been in the layout, I've had the hobby for a while, and I've also in my current layout, the big layout at Peco, I've got a lot of extras, people and scenic stuff that's lying around. So you quick enough, you'll think of something and something to create. And yeah, I've had a caravan for how long on the layout, and it's just been parked in somebody's yard. So it's great to put it out on the beach, you know, at Hornby Beach and the camping area. And more about that on a little bit later. Alright, so now that the mountain area has been done and the hillsides are done and we've got most of the coverage on, we leave the bushes. You might recall that on the list I had the olive bushes, and we leave that for last because once again another tool to hide imperfections if there are any, and it really helps bring realism to the layout. And now that we finally laid down the cloth and to shape the mountain or hill area, you can decide on the scattered colors and mountain grass and bush that will serve your purpose and suit your layout best. And on that note, please look out for part 4, where we are going to look at applying the bush to the final hillside, and also the final effect of the static grass and how that came out. And also, very importantly, we are going to do the ballasting of the track. And I think a lot of people are interested to see what the scenics water will do to the ocean effect. So once again, thank you for joining me. All my best regards, Elizabeth.